Some stories survive because they're true. Others survive because they're terrifying. And then there are stories that refuse to die because nobody can explain them. Bell Island sits off the coast of Newfoundland. At first glance, it doesn't look like the setting of our nightmare. Small houses, fishing boats, fog rolling across the Atlantic. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone. The kind of place where secrets should be impossible. Yet for decades, Bell Island has carried a story that unsettles people who live there. Still, a story of locked bedrooms, unseen attacks, bloody scratches appearing in the dark, and a woman who was believed to not be entirely human. Locals called her the Witch of Bell Island. Whether she was a ghost, a curse, a demon, or something far stranger depends on who you ask. But there's one detail that appears again and again in every version of the story. The attacks always began the same way, with knocking. Not loud knocking, not frantic. 3 slow taps. Tap, tap, tap. Always after midnight. Always from somewhere inside the house. The first person to report it was a fisherman named Michael Doyle. At least, he was the first one willing to talk. According to family accounts, Michael woke shortly after 2 in the morning during a storm. Rain hammered on the roof, the wind screamed outside, yet somehow he heard a knocking clearly. 3 taps, directly beneath his bed. He sat up, listened. Nothing. He convinced himself he had imagined it. Then it came again. 3 taps, this time from inside the bedroom wall. Michael lit a lamp. The room was empty. The door remained locked. The windows were shut. No one could have entered. Still, he searched every corner. Nothing. The following night, the knocking returned, but this time it moved. First the wall, then the ceiling, then beneath the floor. As though something was circling him, watching him, waiting. On the 4th night, Michael claimed he saw a woman standing beside his bed. Not a shadow, not a dream, a woman. Old, thin, dressed entirely in black. Her skin looked pale gray, like flesh left under water too long. She stood completely motionless, staring. Michael later told his friends that he tried to scream, but no sound came out. He could only watch. The woman smiled, then pointed toward the bedroom window. Slowly, silently, Michael turned. And what he saw there terrified him far more than the woman, because there were faces outside. Dozens of them, pressed against the glass, watching, smiling, even though the bedroom was on the 2nd floor. When Michael looked back, the woman was gone. The faces were gone. The room was empty. But something remained. Scratched into the wood beside his bed. A single sentence. She knows your name. Michael never slept in that room again. And within months, other families began reporting similar experiences. At first, people assumed it was gossip, island rumors, the kind of stories small communities create during long winters. Then the injuries started. One woman woke to find deep scratches running down her back. Another claimed unseen hands had dragged her from the bed. And a teenager reported waking to find something sitting on his chest. Something so heavy he couldn't breathe. He said he could smell seawater, rotting seaweed, and something worse, like a grave opened beneath the ocean. When he finally managed to move, the pressure vanished instantly, but muddy footprints remained across his bedroom floor. Bare human footprints, leading nowhere, stopping in the middle of the room, as if whoever made them had simply ceased to exist. Then came the winter of 1978, the year people stopped laughing, because that's when the attacks became impossible to ignore. Entire families claimed they were being terrorized. Furniture moved by itself, doors slammed shut, objects flew across rooms, people woke, bruised, bleeding, terrified. Police investigated, priests investigated, neighbors stayed awake all night hoping to catch whoever was responsible. Nobody ever found anything. Nothing. No intruder, no explanation, just fear. And then a young fisherman named Patrick Byrne disappeared. Patrick was 23 years old, strong, popular. Not the sort of man people expected to vanish. His truck was discovered near the shoreline. The keys remained in the ignition. His jacket was folded neatly on the seat. But Patrick was gone. Search parties combed the coastline for days. Nothing. Nobody. No footprints, no sign of struggle. Then 3 nights later, his mother heard knocking. 3 slow taps, coming from Patrick's bedroom. The room nobody had entered since he vanished. Tap, tap, tap. She thought she was imagining it until the doorknob began turning by itself, slowly, deliberately. Back and forth, back and forth. When she finally opened the door, the room was empty, except for water. The floor was covered in seawater, and written across a fogged mirror were 5 words. She brought him below. Nobody could explain where the water came from. Nobody could explain the writing, and nobody could ever found Patrick Byrne. But according to local legend, that was the moment Belle Island realized something was terribly wrong, because after Patrick disappeared, people began seeing the woman, not in dreams, not in stories, in real life, standing beside roads, watching from cliffs, appearing in windows where no one should have been, and wherever she appeared, something else seemed to follow, something hidden, something waiting, something hungry. For years afterward, people argued about the woman. Some believed she was a ghost. Others thought she was a witch. A few claimed she had once been a real person who lived on Belle Island generations earlier. But the oldest fishermen told a different story. A story they rarely discussed after dark. According to them, the woman wasn't the source of the haunting. She was merely its face, its messenger. The real thing lived somewhere beneath the island, waiting, watching, calling people toward the water. Nobody knew when the whispers began. Most survivors couldn't even remember hearing them for the first time. They simply noticed one day that they were no longer alone. A voice would speak from empty rooms, soft, patient, almost friendly. Sometimes it sounded like a loved one, sometimes a dead relative, sometimes their own voice. The message was always different, but the feeling was always the same. The voice wanted them to go somewhere, outside, toward the cliffs, toward the sea, toward the fog. One man named Robert Squires became obsessed with documenting the phenomenon. Robert wasn't interested in ghost stories. He spent most of his life mocking them. When his wife reported hearing voices at night, he accused her of having nightmares. When neighbors talked about the woman in black, he laughed. Then one morning, Robert awoke to find every clock in his house stopped at exactly 3:11 a.m. Every clock. The microwave, the wristwatches, the alarm clock, even a wind-up clock that hadn't worked in years, all frozen. 3:11. The same night, Robert heard the knocking. 3 taps, coming from the attic. He grabbed a flashlight and climbed the ladder. The attic was empty. At least that's what he thought at first. Then his flashlight swept across the far wall and stopped. Written in dust were words, hundreds of words, layer upon layer, as if someone had spent years writing the same sentence over and over. Come down to the water. Robert later told friends he felt physically ill looking at it, because some of the writing appeared fresh, as if it had been written moments before. and some of the handwriting belonged to people who had died decades earlier. That was the last time anyone saw Robert behaving normally. Over the next month, he became withdrawn, paranoid, terrified of mirrors, terrified of windows, terrified of the ocean. One afternoon, he burst into the local church during a funeral, covered in sweat, shaking, screaming that something was beneath the island. Witnesses said he kept repeating the same sentence: "They aren't dead." Nobody knew what he meant. A week later, Robert vanished. His house was locked from the inside. His truck remained parked outside. His dog was still inside the kitchen, but Robert was gone. Search teams found no sign of him until 6 months later. A diver exploring an abandoned mining shaft beneath the island reported discovering something impossible. The old iron mines beneath Bell Island stretched deep below the ocean floor. Miles of tunnels, collapsed chambers, flooded passages, a maze beneath the sea. The diver claimed he found a room that did not appear on any map. A room carved into solid rock. Inside were hundreds of names. Names scratched into the walls. Names dating back generations. Missing fishermen, missing miners, missing children. People who had vanished without explanation. And among them was a fresh name: Robert Squires. Carved so deeply into the stone that sparks flew when investigators later tried to remove it. The diver refused to return underground. He moved away within the year. He never publicly discussed what else he saw, but according to locals, he told one friend a final detail. There were voices in the flooded tunnels, not echoes, not water, voices, speaking from somewhere deeper, far deeper, as if thousands of people were trapped beneath the ocean, whispering together, waiting. The following winter brought the worst storm Bell Island had seen in decades. For 3 days, the island disappeared beneath fog, not normal fog, something thicker, heavier. People described it as feeling alive. Streetlights vanished only a few feet away. Sound became distorted. Dogs refused to leave their homes, and during those 3 nights, sightings of the woman exploded. Dozens of reports. Some claimed she stood motionless beside the roads. Others saw her staring through windows. One family swore she appeared inside the house, despite every door being locked. But the most disturbing account came from 2 brothers returning from a fishing trip. They were driving along the coast shortly after midnight when they spotted someone standing near the edge of a cliff. A woman dressed entirely in black, long dark hair blowing in the wind. The brothers slowed down, concerned she might fall. Then the woman turned toward them. Both men later described the same thing. She had no eyes, only darkness, as if her face contained 2 empty holes leading somewhere impossibly deep. The younger brother panicked and accelerated. As he drove away, he looked into the side mirror and saw something standing behind her. Something enormous. At first he thought it was a cliff, then it moved, slowly, rising from the fog, taller than any human, its shape impossible to understand. Too many limbs, too many angles. Its silhouette seemed wrong somehow, as though reality itself couldn't decide what it looked like. The younger brother began screaming, and the older brother looked in the mirror and immediately slammed on the brakes because of what he saw. Because the road ahead had disappeared. The fog had swallowed everything. They sat there for several seconds, unable to move, unable to speak. Then they heard it, a voice, not outside the truck, inside it, whispering from the back seat, "Turn around." The brothers never spoke publicly about what happened next, but both left Bell Island permanently within 6 months. Neither of them returned, and neither would discuss the woman ever again. By spring, even lifelong skeptics had stopped laughing because something had changed. The island felt different. People reported waking at exactly 3:11 a.m. The knocking spread, the whispers spread, and the dreams spread. And in those dreams, everyone saw the same thing. A black black ocean beneath the island, and something moving far below the water. Something ancient, something enormous, something slowly waking up. And every night, it seemed a little closer. By the summer of 1981, people stopped asking whether something haunted Bell Island. The question had become something else. What exactly was it? And why did it seem to be getting stronger? The answer, according to local legend, began with a tape recorder. A fisherman named Thomas O'Rourke left Bell Island shortly after the disappearances started. He moved to the mainland, bought a small house, tried to leave the stories behind. For nearly 2 years, it worked. Then one morning he received a package. No return address, no stamp, no indication of how it arrived. Inside was an old cassette tape and a note. Just 4 words. You heard us first. Thomas recognized the handwriting immediately. Robert Squires, the man who had vanished. The man whose name had allegedly been found carved into the flooded mine. The tape contained nearly 30 minutes of audio. Most of it was static, water, breathing, then a voice. Robert's voice. Weak, terrified, as if he was speaking through clenched teeth. The recording began with a single sentence. If anyone finds this, do not come looking. Then came silence, several seconds, followed by a sound Robert could never identify. At first it resembled a whale call, deep, echoing, ancient. But there was something wrong about them, something human. As the recording continued, listeners began noticing words hidden beneath the sounds. Whispers, hundreds of whispers, speaking together, not random, not gibberish. Names. They were saying names, hundreds of names. Missing people, dead people, people from Bell Island stretching back generations. And then Robert started crying. Not speaking, crying. The kind of crying that comes from someone who has seen something they were never meant to see. When he finally spoke again, he said, It's beneath us. Long pause. It's always been beneath us. More static, then. The woman isn't bringing people to it. His breathing quickened. She's bringing it to people. The recording ended with screaming, not Robert's. Dozens of voices, maybe hundreds, and one final sound. A slow knock. 3 taps, directly against the microphone. Tap, tap, tap. The tape ended. Thomas burned it the same day. He moved again 6 months later. According to his family, he never discussed Bell Island ever again, but the stories continued because by then something worse was happening. The mines. The abandoned tunnels beneath Bell Island, people had always avoided certain sections, collapsed passages or flooded chambers, places considered unsafe. Then workers began reporting lights underground, not electrical lights, moving lights, as though lanterns were being carried through tunnels that should have been empty for decades. One maintenance crew claimed they followed one of the lights for nearly 50 minutes. Every time they approached, it moved farther away, always staying just ahead, always turning corners, leading them deeper and deeper, until they reached a section of tunnel none of them recognized. That should have been impossible. They knew the maps, they knew the mines, but this corridor wasn't on any map. The walls were smooth, not blasted, not mined, carved, as though something had hollowed them out. The farther they walked, the warmer the air became, which made no sense. The ocean sat directly above them. Everything should have been freezing. Then one of the workers heard singing, a woman singing, softly, somewhere ahead. The crew turned off the lights and listened. The voice drifted through the darkness, beautiful, sad, almost hypnotic. One worker later admitted he wanted to follow it, needed to follow it. Every instinct told him to keep walking toward the sound. Then another worker shined his flashlight down the corridor, and the singing stopped. What they saw there ended the search immediately. Footprints, thousands of them, bare human footprints covering every inch of the tunnel floor, all moving in one direction, deeper, toward the ocean, toward something waiting in the dark. The crew never returned, neither did anyone else, because a month later, the tunnel collapsed. Officially. At least that's what authorities reported. Locals claim something else happened. They claim the tunnel was sealed intentionally, buried, concrete poured into every entrance, not to keep people out, to keep something in. Years passed. The sightings became less frequent. The whispers faded. The woman appeared less often. Eventually, people convinced themselves the haunting was over. Then came the storm. The one nobody on Bell Island talks about. The storm that struck in October. No weather forecast predicted it. No warning was issued. The ocean simply exploded. Waves smashed against the cliffs. Fog rolled inland. And shortly after midnight, every power line on the island failed. Complete darkness for 6 hours. What happened during those 6 hours remains one of the most disturbing parts of the legend, because hundreds of people report the same thing. Not similar things, the exact same thing. They heard knocking, 3 taps at doors, windows, walls, roofs, 3 taps, pause, 3 taps, again, and again, and again. Some families barricaded themselves inside. Others hid. A few opened the door. Those people were never seen again. When morning finally arrived, 5 residents had vanished. No bodies, no evidence, nothing. Just empty homes, wet floors, and seawater. Every missing person's house contained seawater, even those miles from the shoreline. Investigators never found an explanation, but one final detail spread through the island. A detail that turned the story into a nightmare. Several witnesses claimed they saw something standing offshore during the storm. Not a ship, not a whale, not an animal. A shape. Massive. Rising from the Atlantic. Far larger than any building on Bell Island. Motionless. Watching. One witness described it as a human silhouette made entirely of darkness. Another said it looked like hundreds of bodies fused together. A third refused to describe it at all. He simply said, "It knew we could see it." And that was enough. Today the mines remain sealed. The stories remain, and every few years someone reports seeing the woman again. Standing beside the road, watching from a cliff, smiling through a window, always alone, always silent. But according to the oldest version of the legend, if you see her once, nothing happens. If you see her twice, she remembers you. And if you see her 3 times, something beneath Bell Island learns your name. Some residents claim that it's only a story. Others refuse to discuss it. But there's one final detail that it still circulates among locals. A warning, passed quietly, usually after dark, usually by people who seem genuinely frightened. If you ever find yourself on Bell Island late at night, and you hear 3 knocks coming from somewhere inside your house, do not answer, do not investigate, do not follow the voice if it calls your name, because according to the legend, the knocking isn't trying to get in. It's checking to see if you're already there, waiting, like all the others, beneath the water, in the dark, listening for the next 3 knocks.